I'm glad to have you all of you here attending today's event. I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you not only to the attendees, but also to the organizers, Giada Platania from SICINDUSTRIA, our speakers, Wolfgang Arlt from Cotri, and Francesco Baggio-Ferraris from the Italy-China Council Foundation. Without further ado, why are we talking about tourism today? Why are we standing here discussing tourism in the... posso gentilmente chiedere di far partire la presentazione? Sorry for the short technical issue. We should be starting the presentation. Yes, here we are. Okay. I was saying, why are we talking about tourism today? That's because up until 2019, we saw that Chinese outbound tourism towards Europe and towards Italy as well, as we are today located in Sicily, had been a growing trend. We were expecting that this trend would continue to grow. We were expecting it to outperform the previous years as it had been up until that point. But then, of course, the pandemic brought everything to a halt. Tourism has been one of the most impacted, if not the most impacted sectors of the economy, suffering from travel restrictions, impossibility of moving abroad. And nowadays, in 2023, we are finally seeing positive signals. China has finally reopened its borders. Its citizens can finally once again travel. What we are expecting nowadays, why are we discussing tourism in April 2023? We are expecting the trend that had been growing up until 2019 to once again take pace. We're expecting 2023 to be the starting year of this process. We are expecting this process to grow fast. We're expecting to be able to reach 2019 levels soon and potentially to have this trend still growing. So in light of this, the importance of Chinese outbound tourism for enterprises that are active in the tourism sector is even more important nowadays. Given that summer 2023 is potentially one of the core moments in which this moment of rebirth of this sector might be witnessed, we deemed it relevant nowadays to focus on providing the instruments for European small and medium enterprises to be able to cope with this flow, to be able to intercept this flow and to understand how it has changed in the past 3 years. Of course, nothing will be the same, or at least most of the things that we had learned to work through are no longer to be the same as before. Some partners might no longer be there. Some tendencies might have changed, and thus approaching Chinese tourism as we had been up until now might no longer be as fruitful as we thought it would be. So being ready, being able to understand this change, being able to intercept this change and to cope with this has become much more important nowadays. So without further ado, and before taking a look at SME Centre, I would like to briefly present today's event. After the introductory words that we're having now, we're going to have 3 speeches from Professor Wolfgang Arlt. The idea is that of providing, first of all, a snapshot of what we are having now, what we're seeing nowadays, and then a forecast of what is going to happen and an overview of the instruments that are needed in order to best take advantage of the changes that are happening. After that, we will have a focus on the Italian specificities provided by Francesco Baggio-Ferraris, and at the end, we will have a Q&A session. Despite having a final Q&A session, I would also like to invite all of you to please ask your questions also at the end of each module for those attending in person. And for those of you who are attending online and on Zoom, please do not hesitate to write your questions as soon as you have them. We will try and answer them at the earliest possible moment. So without further ado, I would like to leave the floor to Giada Platania from SICINDUSTRIA. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today, here in presence, but also to the attendees who are online. We have really a long-term collaboration with the SME Centre, and we've been organizing a lot of activities also with Cotri, paving the way to China. As partners of Enterprise Europe Network, since 2014, we started organizing a series of activities aimed at creating this crucial bridge between Italy and in particular Sicily for our companies and China. And from that moment, we started organizing training sessions, provide assistance and consultancy, organizing missions to understand how the Chinese business environment work, and hosting Chinese delegates who had the chance to meet Sicilian entrepreneurs and start matching. So this process was going really very well, as David was saying, together with you, SME Centre, and other Chinese stakeholders that were also members of Enterprise Europe Network, until COVID arrived. Now we're back. We're back with a series of potentials, which will be better explained by Professor Arlt. And we are here to repaving the way between China and Sicily, hopefully, or Europe in this case, as our attendees are not only from Sicily, but from everywhere in Europe. So this is a key point, because one of the key things that most of the tourism operators are debating is the change of seasons. Well, the Chinese tourism can provide a solution to this big issue. If we think that Chinese tourism and most of the Chinese holidays take place when we have our low season, this might be a great solution for us if we work well and if we create the right conditions to host properly the Chinese tourists, which change a lot, and we will see that, but we have to learn how to host them properly. So without any hesitation, because I don't want to lose really precious time, I would like to leave the floor to the Wolfgang Arlt. And David first to pass, okay?
Thank you very much, Jada. And yeah, I would just like to quick couple words about USME Centre, since it might not be as well known. This is an EU-funded project. It has been established in 2010. This is currently its 13th year of life. The overall goal of this project is that of supporting European small and medium enterprises that want to enter or expand in the Chinese market. Currently, the project is being implemented by 6 partners that you can see at the bottom of this slide. As I was mentioning, the goal being supporting enterprises in entering the Chinese market. 5 main services have been devised in order to support these entities into entering the market. The first one is the self-diagnosis tool. This, I would like first of all to say that all of these services are completely free of charge for all EU enterprises. The first one is the self-diagnosis tool. This is directly accessible on USME Centre website. And we can think of it as kind of an assessment to understand if you are ready for China, if you know all the basic information that are required for entering this market. Should that not be the case, as unfortunately it often is, the tool will directly redirect, sorry for the wordplay, to the knowledge component of the USME Centre services. We can think of this component as a database of all the guidelines, market studies, reports, all the documents that have been published by USME Centre in the past 13 years. Of course, these documents are also kept up to date. And this component can serve as a bridge to close those knowledge gaps that might have emerged from the self-assessment. The third component is the advice and ask the expert tool. Here we can add a little bit, another step, another piece of the puzzle towards entering the Chinese market. Whilst the knowledge sector provides information that are applicable for all enterprises, of course, we have general information, the specific information for each sector. The Ask the Expert function provides specific tips that are relevant for the enterprise. So should the enterprise not have found the answer to its questions on the knowledge component, they can directly ask our experts based in Beijing. The fourth component is the training sector. This event would fall under this component. The aim is that of providing conferences, trainings, webinars, all of the instruments in which we can discuss about the Chinese market. We can show how to enter it from a general perspective, and we can reach up until to very specific questions, very specific points. We've had seminars on environmental law in China, on manufacturing 4.0. So every partner has specific necessities, and with this tool, we try to cover those. The last component is the advocacy one, and under this component, we try to provide a venue for European enterprises that are already in the Chinese market to have a coherent voice, to bring them together and make sure that they can be heard at the governmental level in China. So I think I took also too much of your time. So I would like to thank once again the whole of you for participating today. And I would like to leave the floor to Professor Wolfgang Arlt. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. These chairs are so comfortable. I think I will fall asleep sitting in them. So let me go over to the rostrum. And I need this one. Yes, thank you. Can I? Sure. Okay. Okay, so when we also start with the slides, first of all, this is not the first slide actually. But yes, okay, I can see. Oh, it is. Okay, so okay. First of all, let me also say thank you very much to the organizers to have me here. And for those of you who are online, I can tell you that you can be envious. We just had a wonderful buffet lunch in the sunshine, overlooking the ocean and the wonderful landscape of the western coast of Sicily. So I've been to Italy many times. I've also been to the East Coast, to Syracuse and Catania and Taormina, but that's the first time I'm coming to the West Coast. So thank you very much for that. And so yes, just very briefly, you can see I've been doing China for quite some time, for more than 40 years. And as David said, it had been a growing market ever since the last 20 years. And then, of course, the last 3 years, it stopped. And now we are back in business. So just quickly, I'm now something changed here. Okay, I'm the head of COTRI, which is the China Outbound Tourism Research Institute, which was started almost 20 years ago and is based in Hamburg in Germany. And we are doing publications, trainings, consulting, and we actually just starting. So we just published a new book, and it is also in Italian, because as we have already heard, it is always better to read in your original language. Sorry, my Italian is so poor. So I will not be able to give a lecture in Italian, but so this book is, as you can see, is giving practical tips for the new wave of Chinese outbound tourists. And also next month, we will start a new newsletter, which is called China Outbound Tourism Market Intelligence. And we also have Italian partners who have also been working together with our hosts in the past, who will do this also in Italian language. This is starting end of next month. So that will be another new source, and also will also partly give information exactly for what is happening in China outbound tourism for Italy. So let's go into the topic. Where are we now? Where are we as of today? So clearly, it has been said, there is no way to return to the old normal. And the former Secretary General of the World Tourism Organization of the United Nations said in 2021, rather optimistically, we will move forward to a new, better normal. So let's see if this is possible. So we saw that in the years of the pandemic, we all have been discussing that tourism has to change. It has to become more working in the way of sustainability, has to become more sustainable. It has to react to climate change. It also has to react to the fact that the average age of international tourists is going up. So we have less young people in this world and more older people or best agers. So their needs and interests are different from maybe just beach holidays. And we also saw that tourism started to being, we started to be the good guys. We brought jobs, entertainment, peace, understanding. But if we remember 2019, the main discussion was over tourism, that people in many places got unhappy about too many people coming and about the destructive forces. And you had this discussion about flight shaming, that you are polluting the air just for a holiday flight and so on. So clearly, we saw now one of the results of this, that when now we are starting tourism again, we have customers again, but we don't have enough staff because a lot of the people have been running away from our industry and are not coming back because obviously we have not taken enough care about our staff. So therefore, we see that there were a lot of ideas how to do things better. Alas, we have seen since last summer, when in Europe at least tourism started again, that most people are simply going back to the old ways, and we are still looking at arrival numbers as a major key performance indicator, when of course arrival numbers don't tell you anything about how long people stay, how much they spend, what is the ecological footprint of all that. So it is something where we see there is a need to change things, and well, we are talking about Chinese tourism and Sicily today, and we see that there is also the need to fight over tourism in the way that people go not just to a few places in a country, but that you also help people to spread out over the whole destination and also over the whole year. And already I think that was a very important part in the introduction, that when we talk about the opportunities of the Chinese market, let me say from the beginning, it is not only that these are a lot of people and they spend a lot of money, but it is also that they are not coming in the main season to swim in the ocean, and they're not coming here for the sunshine. So the major market source markets for Southern Europe are the Northern Europeans. I'm a German, of course. You come here because in the summer for the sunshine, for the beach, and it's very hard to convince a German to come here in November and go to the inner parts of the country. For Chinese, it's much easier because they have less of a fixed image in their head, and also, yeah, they have holidays at different times of the year. So very briefly, looking back, Chinese outbound tourism is a rather new phenomenon. So it was the very first trip started in 1983. So that's 40 years ago, when people were allowed to go to Hong Kong to visit their families, if the Hong Kong families were paying. And it is only in 1997, so that's just like 25 years ago, that the Chinese government issued so-called provisional regulations for travel for Chinese citizens abroad on their own cost. So this is when the Chinese government acknowledged that there are people who actually want to be leisure tourists, traveling just for fun, just to have a look at the world, and are willing and able to pay for that. And on the destination started to issue tourist visa for Chinese people. So this is something rather recent, but within 15 years, China started from almost zero and ended up in 15 years to be the #1 tourism source market in the world. And from 2016, it got this position, even if you do not count traveling to Hong Kong and Macau, because about half of the trips go to Hong Kong, Macau, which are special administrative regions. So they're not really a foreign country. So by 2019, we had the situation that the Chinese, both in numbers and in spending, were more important than the number 2 and number 3, USA and Germany together. So it was really clearly a market everybody was running after and nobody could ignore. And as a result, in many countries, Chinese could enter visa-free or with a visa on arrival or electronic visa. So unfortunately, Schengen was one of the areas where we were lacking behind. So you had to apply each time for a visa. We didn't have multiple entry visa, at least not for tourists. So that they had to, if they were coming to Europe for the 10th time, they still had to submit their birth certificate, and somebody had to check if the certificate matched with the passport when that had been done 9 times before. So so therefore we were a bit behind in that. So here we have just a brief overview. So how this developed from 2001 when we had about 10 million trips to 2019 when we had about 170 million border crossings. And you can see the blue part. This is trips to Greater China, so Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan. And you can see that up to like 2014, the majority of these trips actually were going to Greater China. But from 2015, the orange part, which is the rest of the world, was responsible for the future growth, so that the numbers of people going to Hong Kong, Macau, Taiwan actually in some years went down, but more and more people had the money and dared to travel further. Then comes 2020 and 2021, 2022, and it went down to close to nothing. And for 2023, our forecast is that we will reach 100 or 110 million trips again, and in 2024, hopefully we'll be back to the level of 2019. Where are the people traveling to? So you can see that Italy made sometimes in the top 12 or even the top 10, but of course the majority of people are traveling to the neighborhood, to the countries close by. Like most Europeans also travel within Europe, of course. So, but Italy is within the European destinations for the Chinese have been, of course, one of the major destinations together mostly with France. So we had, if we don't count Hong Kong, Macau, we had in 2018 about 100 million border crossings, and all of these, about 15% went to Europe. And but you can see that here for Southern Europe, the percentage was less than it was to Western and even to Eastern Europe. So don't be surprised, because according to the UNWTO statistics, Vladivostok is a part of Eastern Europe. So Russia is counted in this number. So that is why these numbers are a bit high. But what we can see is that, especially on the right-hand side, you can see the development of China's long-haul outbound travel, that Europe was growing, but growing slower than the overall market. So we were adding more visitors, but we were losing market share for the overall market. So we were not successful in the way that we would grow, at least at the level of the overall growth. What we could see up to 2019 and what we will see even more in the coming years is that there was simply from experience a growing level of sophistication and segmentation. So that, of course, there's always people asking, what do the Chinese tourists want and what do they do? Or I've been asked 100 times, some people tell me Chinese people always want to eat Chinese food, but now somebody told me, no, that's not true. They want to eat local food. So what is true? And the answer is, of course, depends. Who are you talking about? Are you talking about somebody who was a student in Italy or in America or in UK for 3 years? Or are you talking a 55-year-old housewife from Ningxia province, first time in her life outside of China? So they are very different people. Like, well, the same will be if you have one of you traveling or the lady at the supermarket checkout. So be careful of all the averages or of all people who tell you that is what the Chinese people want. There are, of course, 170 million trips. They are, of course, very, very different. And during the pandemic, this has been even moving forward. So we see that there are a lot of Chinese people are traveling, especially long haul, because of their special interests, of their hobbies. So one of the things to understand clearly is, unlike the majority of tourists coming here, for instance, to Sicily, where we are, the Chinese are not coming for recreation. They're not coming for holidays in the way to do nothing, just to hang out on the beach. So if they want to do that, A, they don't have much time for this kind of activities. And B, if they want to do that, they stay in South Korea or in China or in South Korea or in Vietnam or in Thailand. So there are many beautiful beaches much closer to China. They don't have to travel 10 hours in an airplane to come to here. So they come to Europe to see something, do something, experience something, and as much as possible in a short time. And it's also about education for the youngsters and health for the best ages. So these are the fastest growing segments, so the young and the old. It used to be that mostly the middle-aged people were traveling, but now I think also we can say for the rest of the decade, education and health, if you are dealing in this part of the market, you have a very good opportunity to get more Chinese people. And also we can see that more travelers coming from lower level, from smaller cities, which in China means only 3 million or 2 million inhabitants. That's a small city in China. And of course, people know much more about the destinations. There are all millions of information sources. All the national tourism organizations do a lot of marketing and information in China. If you want to travel to Sicily, certainly you find one of your friends who has been here or who knows somebody who has been here, or at least online you find thousands of information. So just to give you an example of the level of sophistication, I put this up here. So I found in social media, there were some Chinese people discussing which are the 10 best restaurants for tiramisu if you come to Milano. So that's quite a sophisticated level of discussion. And the last point, which is very important, the language question is, of course, let me say that it's very helpful if people in the tourism industry speak English, like obviously all of you do. But there is also now a lot of machines, apps for your smartphone or little machines where you speak in one language and the machine talks in the other language. So this was one of the major problems, was communication, that many Chinese only speak Chinese and they meet people here who don't speak good English as well. But now every year more and more people speak English, of course, in China, because they had this in school. But also with these little machines, you can have a direct Chinese Italian or Chinese Norwegian or whatever discussion going on. So this is something which, of course, also makes it much easier for Chinese to travel without a tour guide, to travel in a small group by themselves, because they have less problems to communicate. However, we can see that, so as we said, we were losing market share, and also we saw that there was not enough product adaptation done. So many destinations, they just said, okay, we do for the Chinese what we do for everybody, and that was not enough. So we did a lot of surveys over the years, and most Chinese people coming back from Europe were saying it was okay, it was good, but it was not fantastic. So it was not wow. And the main reason why it was not wow was what they said, okay, they don't care enough about us. They don't do enough things, especially for us. So for instance, the Chinese people want to things happening shorter because they don't have so much time, so that it should be more concentrated and there should be more documentation. They want to show their friends a video or a certificate that now after they do a cooking class, and then you have to give them a certificate that now they are expert arancini producer or whatever. So this is something which led to the fact that we had this problem, and this was aggravated by this idea that many people would go to the main places in the main season because this is what we told them to do. This is what they say, what is normal, and so that they were thinking, okay, we saw the main places of a country, and then this is done. Oops, sorry, that is my phone. No, sir. Okay, sorry for that. So who's traveling? So first of all, be aware of the fact we talk about the top 10% of the Chinese society. So most of the Chinese people, or almost let's say almost everybody in China, and this is a big achievement, has enough to eat. So you can be sure that practically all Chinese wake up in the morning and they can be sure that there will be something to eat. Most of them have live in a place where they have electricity, and they might even have a TV and a fridge, and there will be a road to their village, and there will be a bus coming sometimes. So this is for 1.4 billion people, the achievement which was never reached before. And if you look to India, you see that's not automatically the case. But 90% of the Chinese don't have the money to travel to Europe. So maybe 5% more have enough money to travel to Thailand or to South Korea, short trips. But when we look at the income levels, you can see that we have about 150 million. That's about 10% of the population earning per year something like between $20,000 a year and more. And we have about 70 million earning more than I can't read this myself. 180,000. So this is and from this, well, you can ask yourself, okay, these numbers are not so high, so how can they afford a couple of €1,000 to for their travel? So actually, most of the people don't pay their trips from their income, from their salary, but rather they pay this from their wealth, from the money they earn from the stock market, and in the past, especially from real estate business. So the last 15 years, the price of apartments have been going up in China all the time. So you would buy an apartment and sell it with a profit next year, buy a more expensive one and resell it again. And so if you had some money at the beginning, it was almost automatically that you became a millionaire over time. This has now stopped. So since 1 year, the prices go down. So the economy has slowed down. So that means that Chinese are not getting richer as fast as before, but still they have enough money for a trip to Europe. So if you're selling Maserati sports cars in China, maybe you're in trouble. Not so many people have 250,000 euros for a car like that, but 3,000 or 5,000 euros for a trip to Europe, that is still affordable for them. What is changing is that it is less people move from middle class to upper middle class. Less people move from being able to pay for a trip to Thailand to being able to pay for a trip to Italy. So therefore, we will have to concentrate more in the future on repeat visitors. So on telling people, yeah, you have been to Venice and to Rome, but now come back to Italy and to go somewhere else, rather than telling them come to Italy the first time in your life. So because many people already have done that. So what happened during the pandemic? So in January 23, 2020, the Chinese government decided that the borders will be closed for group trips. In February, that was in the middle of Chinese New Year, the main travel period. So in February, still some individual travelers were traveling, but at the end of February, also we stopped to let the Chinese in. And you can see, therefore, in the first quarter of 2020, we still had 14.5 million travelers, and then it crashed down to almost nothing. And until the end of 2022, we had like 2 million or so each year, but most of these people only went to Macau. Macau was the only place where you could go to without having to go into quarantine arriving in Macau, and without having to go into quarantine coming back to China from Macau, because until very late in 2022, they didn't have a single COVID case, so that was the only exception. So if you take out, you can see the numbers, if you take out the trips to Macau, practically nobody was traveling except maybe medical doctors, politicians, specialists, very important business people, stuff like that. But leisure tourism did practically not happen for 3 years, which meant not only hardship for a lot of people in the industry here, it also meant, of course, that the outbound departments of the Chinese tour operators were closed, and some of those Chinese tour operators which had concentrated on outbound travel went belly up and are no longer among us. Now, of course, new ones are coming, but so that was it had also the effect that, especially in 2021, when traveling inside China was easy, in 2022 there were already a lot of restrictions with all the lockups. That, of course, domestic Chinese tourism had a very good year. All the rich Chinese people had to stay in China and spend their money in China. So there was a big step forward in the quality of the new products developed in the domestic Chinese market. And the Chinese found out that there are also some nice places in China they have never visited. So one result is now that domestic tourism has become a new competitor for outbound tourism. Before it was clear if you were rich, you were, of course, you were traveling internationally. So for Europe, you can see this sad numbers that also for Europe 2021, 2022, we had much less visitors than before. So so what has happened now is that it is not only that the Chinese have developed a taste for domestic tourism because there's better services, but it's also that with the overall political development in China, it has become more of a patriotic thing to spend your money in China. So it is politically correct. And you can do your shopping in Hainan. Hainan is a big island in the south, which is a complete duty-free zone. So, and during the pandemic, many of the luxury brands opened new shops there and brought the latest collection to China, which they did before. So that is something we have to take into account, but also important for us that the lot of changes were in the behavior and in the preferences of Chinese travelers. And I will talk more about this, but it's clearly outdoor activities, camping, caravanning, glamping, so glamour camping, and also interest in outdoor sport activities and so on has been growing a lot. So I'm happy to say that last summer I published a forecast saying at the beginning of 2023, China will have to open up again. And we started last summer to write the book I showed you at the beginning. And indeed, on the 26th of December, in the middle of our Christmas period, the government announced that China will open up its borders again. And I can tell you, after 3 years where nobody was interested in what country is doing, I haven't slept much ever since because now all this is coming back. And so there was a period when first Hong Kong was opened. First there was a quota per day, but within a few weeks this quota was abandoned. And so there are some famous lists of countries where group travels can be organized to, but individual Chinese people can go anywhere. And since March 15, so 1 month ago, China also started to issue tourist visa to everybody. So from the Chinese point of view, tourism is back to normal. There's no more quarantine or the only thing you have to do is testing. So 48 hours before you arrive in China, you have to do a test, but that's about it. On the other side is, so most Schengen countries have also started to issue tourist visa. Funnily enough, my home country, Germany, until now has not. So it has been announced a few days ago that the German Foreign Ministry is considering it, and maybe with our foreign minister at the moment in China, maybe she will announce this as an Easter gift that they will do this. But certainly in a couple of weeks, all Schengen countries will be open again for Chinese tourists. So, and indeed, we do have 2 countries in Europe where you can travel without any visa as a Chinese citizen, which is Serbia and Albania. So we can see that the first people who started to travel already from January coming to Europe were MICE and business travelers, and there were also family reunions. So I know some people where the Chinese foreign couple, they were not seeing each other for more than 2 years because one went back for Chinese New Year to China, couldn't get out again. So this has already increased since January, and now I think starting about now, we will see also leisure tourists coming in bigger numbers again. And this is, of course, there were some hurdles to overcome. A lot of times people didn't have a passport, so they had to renew or apply for a new passport. And also, at the moment, as far as I know, it's, for instance, for Germany, it still takes 6 weeks even for a business visa to get approved, because, of course, also on our end, all the consulates and the service companies for visa application processing had nothing to do the last 3 years, so they had no manpower. So they had first to get people back to do that. And yeah, and some, as I said, some companies had not yet started to issue a tourist visa. But I think from, yeah, let's say something like next month, these hurdles are overcome, and then we will go back to a normal. And of course, not to forget affordable air transport. So this is, of course, at the beginning of the year, we had 10% of the number of seats between Europe and China than we had 2019. Now we are at about 35%. And by June, I think we will have more than half or something like that. And I heard today that also, for instance, for Palermo, you will have very soon Turkish Airlines flying 4 or 5 times a week between Istanbul and Palermo. And that will, of course, for Chinese tourists, many of them use Turkish Airlines to fly from China to Istanbul. That will be also a big push to help bringing more Chinese people here. And this is happening in many other destinations, of course, as well. So I think I will skip through this a little bit fast because of the time, but clearly, as I said, you have to differentiate between different kind of Chinese travelers. And one major market segment are clearly the first tier inhabitants, people living in Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen. That's where most of the rich people are living, and that's where most of the people with travel experience are living. And so if you live around these big cities, it's very unlikely that you travel in a package tour group with 40 people in a bus and the tour guide with a flag and in front. Your friends will laugh about you if you still travel this old-fashioned way. So these are people who are much more likely that they have already been to Europe for business or for fair or whatever, and are also more likely that they even have, for instance, Italy already visited Venice and Firenze, Milano, and Roma. So you still have first-time visitors, of course, but even for them, it is, you can see the new programs are having more free time and less forced shopping. So shopping is still important, but it's not that important anymore as it used to be. And people are more willing to spend money on experiences, for instance, fine dining. So spending 100 euros or more on a dinner, if it is something very special. So therefore, to go for this package tours is not a good idea because you don't earn much money, because this is very much going for the cheapest offer. And also it is something where these are, well, probably the least well-behaved tourists, or those who will have the biggest problems with. And one market segment, just to mention, which is often overlooked, are expats. So you have, again, now a couple of 100,000 Chinese students in Europe. And you have also at least 100,000 Chinese people working for Chinese companies in Europe. So in my hometown, Hamburg, where Kotri is located, we have more than 500 Chinese companies because of the harbor, import-export companies, the shipping companies, Bank of China, and so on. And both the students and the expats have already a visa. They don't have language problems. They don't have to travel so much, but most of them have enough money, and especially the experts, normally they're here without their family, so they're bored. So it's a very good idea to tell them, okay, you're working in Paris or in Rome for that matter. So how about you come for a 3-day long weekend trip to here? We have some nice offer for you, something special. So that is something where you can easily get customers. And also, of course, if these people then tell their friends, I've been to Palermo, wow, it's a wonderful place. You maybe never heard about it, but I recommend it. This is a better marketing than any expensive videos you are producing yourself and telling people how wonderful you are, because people say, yeah, that is just propaganda, that's advertisement. Why should I believe that? So we see the market is not only splitting up in package tours and FITs, individual travelers, but actually in the middle, there's a big part which is half or semi-organized travelers. So people who use a tour operator, but they go to the tour operator and say, okay, we are a group of 6-7 people, and we want to do this, we have this budget, we want to include something like that. We don't want that. We did this already. And now tour operator make a nice program customized for us. And they do this because, of course, it takes a lot of time. If you do all this yourself, you have to search hundreds of hours on the internet, and maybe you miss out something nice you would have liked to do, but you didn't know that is existing. So, and this is, of course, something where it's an opportunity for destination to say, yeah, we have a module, we have a 2-day package or 3-day package, which can be slotted into such a trip. So not a whole trip. So I don't know, taking food for an example, you say, okay, you come to Palermo, and for 2 days, we will, well, you have some wonderful lunch and dinners, but also you meet a chef, and you have a 2 hours cooking class, and we bring you to the market. You can see the fresh vegetables and fruits, and you go with the chef when he's buying the ingredients. So he will explain to you how he's selecting the best cauliflowers. So you will have a full knowledge about from the field to the plate, why this food is so good and so special. And this is a 2 days module, and before and after you do what you want. So this kind of things I think will be very good. And also to mention, so best ages. So as you may have seen in the newspapers, China has reached the peak in the development of population numbers. So China is now starting to shrink in population, and from next year, probably India will overtake China as the most populous country in the world. And that also means that you have less and less young people, because even so now, officially, you are allowed to have 3 kids again, and the government is actually supporting families to have kids and more kids. Actually, especially in the cities, most women don't want to have children because this is the end of your career, and it's also very expensive because Chinese kids have to be, of course, the best in class. You have to spend a lot of money on extra prem classes and extra courses, and so therefore China is getting older before it's getting richer, so it will be a problem in the future. But for us, it clearly means that have more old people. And I can give you one example. For instance, a lot of the people who are now retired, when they were young, there was a cultural revolution. There was no university, so they started business and maybe they earned some money, but they never had the chance to be a student. And you have this kind of associations, old citizens universities, where people learn something, and they also organize trips. And of course, in Italy, you have the Roman Empire, so we have enough to talk about for a couple of trips. And they come here and they have a real professor of history as a lecturer telling them something in the morning, and in the afternoon you go and visit some archaeological sites or something like that. And these associations, so I know some people who in Tunisia, not far from here, they work with the Senior Citizens University of Zhejiang province, which is just one province in China. And this organization has 1 million members. So once you get 1 or 2 groups coming to your place and they're happy about what you do for them, you can stop any marketing, because they will tell their other members and they will come. And again, they will come here all times of the year. They're not only coming in summertime. So that will be something, a very good idea to fill your low season. So this is things which people are not thinking about, and there are many other such niche markets. So quiz question: which country has more Christians, Italy or China? Ha ha ha! You know the answer, China. So China has depends on definition, about 70 to 80 million Christians, mostly Protestants. There's a lot of American money in underground missionary activities. And these people most of them are urban, middle-aged, middle-class people looking for the meaning of life, looking for orientation in life. So they are very interested in Christianity. And well, there's a Pope living here. So, and we have all wonderful places like Assisi and also here, of course, a lot of wonderful cathedrals. And so this is something which, of course, when you talk about China, Chinese source market, did you ever think about Christians? Probably not. So, and there are so many such examples where it is a niche, yeah, but it's 5% of the Chinese population. So this is the same number as there are Germans. And what are you doing for the German market? A lot. So therefore, so you have to think, okay, what do we have on offer? And then which is a good fit to which market segment, and do something. So it seems the electricity, sorry, it says I'm running out of electricity, so something is not working here as it should. Sorry for the little interruption here. Yes, okay. David, you're a real technical expert. Thank you for that. Okay, sorry. So from this, what I've been saying, it should be clear there is not the Chinese outbound tourist. You have many different people, and also, yeah, food, for instance, is a big topic now. There are a lot of people who are foodies, and so that is the idea that the Chinese just come here to eat Chinese food. For the majority of people, this is not true anymore. And again, talking about Italy, for Chinese people, of course, it is easier to accept Italian food than many other cuisines in Europe, because, well, the Chinese will tell you, well, you are eating Chinese food. So the Marco Polo brought this back from China. This is actually Chinese food. So therefore, of course, it's easy for Chinese people to eat noodles and Italian wonton, how they call that. What you would call Chinese ravioli. So therefore, that is something where you can really do a lot for this market. So we see that a lot of new forms of traveling have become more favored in the domestic market in China, and will also now spill over to the outbound market. So you have luxury hotels still, so that hotels which offer for special themes something. So we have in China, for instance, you have a hotel which is called North Pole Hotel, and they have some real polar bears living there, the poor bears. But so adventure diving or paragliding, so for young people, and all kinds of outdoor activities, hiking or mountaineering or canoeing or surfing or windsurfing. So also a lot of things you can do here, of course. And so the big change, and which is in favor of all the small destinations in Europe, is that it used to be the Chinese tourists were going to where everybody goes. So Eiffel Tower, Harrods, Milano shopping. So you had to answer, if your neighbor asked you, have you been to Paris? You had to say, yes, of course I've been to Paris. This has changed now towards discovering places. So now it is, if you want to get bragging power, if you want to get your peers saying, wow, you're somebody special, you can say, okay, I've been to a very special place, not many people know about, but I discovered it's very wonderful. And that can be, I don't know, Anna or in mainland Italy, places like Perugia or Bari or what have you, Siena. So there are so many beautiful places, Ferrara, where they will be proud to say, yeah, I found it. But of course, you have to do something for it. You have to tell them it is existing, and you have to tell them what is so special there. And if you can make a connection to something which is in for this specific market, then even the better. And so the idea is also going away from just taking a photo of having real contact. So I think one of the big jobs of the tourism destination management organizations is to help people to connect with local people who share the same special interest. And if that is industrial heritage, big topic in China also now for retired engineers and people like that, or if it is music, so that you bring Italian jazz fans or jazz musicians together with Chinese jazz fans. Again, the number of Chinese jazz fans is probably not more than 1% of the Chinese population, but 1% of the Chinese population is Austria and Switzerland combined. So, so that is, I think, a key point to take care of in the future. And so the barriers are going away. And that's the end of my first module. And I hope you have some questions we can quickly answer. And before we go to the next module, please.
Thank you very much, Wolfgang. And yes, indeed, segmentation, discovering new places, this is definitely something that can be of extreme interest to our audience here today. Sicily in particular has a lot of possibilities for growing as a wide-known destination for Chinese outbound tourists. I see that we have some questions from the audience, so I will be bringing the microphone so that we can take them.
Thank you very much for your speech. Just a couple of questions. The first one is, I was expecting some forecast on the flights for 2023.
Some
forecast, some
coming.
Yeah, so, because actually we do have. I'm the vice president of the European Travel Commission, and actually we have some forecast for the European market in general. And as a National Tourist Observatory, I am the chairman, we have some forecast, but I would like to compare with your, since you know the Chinese market. This is the first question. I do the second one as well. The second one is, are you expecting in the short run flights to Russia from China? Is Russia an open market, as far as you know, maybe that we are not Chinese, so maybe. And also, do your, this is personal curiosity, do your aircrafts fly over, not stopping Russia? Are they free to fly over Russia, like the, for example, the Gulf companies?
Yes. Yes. Okay, so first of all, happy to have you in the audience. So as you may know, Kotri is the official partner of the European Travel Commission. So I signed with Eduardo Santander a paper at ITB Berlin a few weeks ago. We have been working before. Yes, and so we have been working before, but together, but now we are official partners. So thank you very much for coming. So I will talk about the forecast later on, so maybe let me answer to this later. But clearly, the very first package tour, which went from Guangzhou somewhere else after the first list was published, went to Russia. So that was a kind of symbolic gesture. And there are flights from China to Russia, and Russia is one of the destinations Chinese people go to. So there is you know, the Chinese position is that kind of neutrality. So therefore, for Chinese people, don't think it's a bad thing to travel to Russia. But again, statistics, as you know, are always tricky. So when you see the numbers of Chinese people going to Russia, a lot of these people are just crossing the border. So there was just a few weeks ago, a new bridge was opened between Blagoveshchensk and Heihe, so across the Amur River. Until then, there was only ferries. In the winter, you could drive on the frozen river. So now there's a big new bridge, and so you have tens of thousands of people crossing every day between China and Russia, but they just go across the river to the market or something like that. So, and this is always mixed up with the tourist numbers to St. Petersburg and Moscow. So therefore, the numbers look bigger than what is really happening in leisure tourism. And the third question, so as far as I know, also the Chinese airlines are flying, if they're not flying to Russia, then they fly around Russia. So I think this is the same. I wouldn't have heard of because it would be obviously an advantage. they would be faster if they could fly through Russian airspace. But as far as I know, until now, this is also for the Chinese airlines, because one reason is most of these trips are code-sharing trips. So you have a lot of trips where Air China and Lufthansa, for instance, do the same flight under code sharing. And of course, Lufthansa could not accept that they would get in trouble, rightly so, if they would accept that a Lufthansa flight is going across Russian airspace. So I think from the Russian side, I have to say I'm not an expert in this, but I think the Russians don't forbid to use their airspace. It's rather that we say out of sanctions, we don't want to use Russian airspace. So for instance, one of the cheapest tickets you can get at the moment to China is with Finnair, because Finnair before they had the advantage that they had the shortest trip to Beijing because they were flying across Russia, and now they have to make this long detour, so they are taking longer now. That's why they had lowered the tickets prices. And to the first question, so I will come back to that later in the presentation.
Perfect. Are there any other questions? Also from those of you who are attending online, just please do not hesitate to write them on the Q&A session of the Zoom platform. Should it be helpful, you can also ask your questions in Italian, and then we will translate them for our speaker and for those of you who are attending online. I see that there are no questions, neither in person. Oh, I see. I see that we have no relevant questions for now, so we can. I think we can move on with the module 2 and then get back to the Q&A session, since we are also running a bit late on time. Thank you very much.
Yes. You know, asking a professor to be brief is always. Oh, I forgot my clicker. So now let's talk about. After we had a look. What's the situation, how to react to that? And well, a little bit has already been talked about. Now it's okay. Sorry. I was too fast, no? Oops. Here we are. Okay. So start again. Well, the first thing, of course, is to say that when we all have the discussions. Okay, we have our customers have wishes. So how much can we fulfill their wishes? And of course, we on the one hand we have to try our best to do. On the other hand, of course, there are also things where you have to be firm. And so, for instance, one never-ending discussion is that in Europe we have rather strict laws how many hours a coach driver can drive and when they have to stop driving, and which is for Chinese always very hard to understand, that it's not a solution to give the guy 100 euros and then he drives an hour longer, that he will say, no, he's losing his license. And anyway, it's all electronically recorded, so that so there is something. So you have to keep in mind what do the Chinese people want, but of course there are limits. If your shops are closed on Sundays, your shops are closed on Sundays, and you have to be clear also in explaining that. But of course, if this is something you can do, so there's an old saying in marketing, the worm has to be tasty to the fish, not the fisherman. So maybe you prefer pizza, but the fish does not. So and so therefore, I personally hate karaoke. So, but most Chinese people, especially the people from the south of China, they love karaoke. So why not give them a karaoke room in your hotel? Put a machine there, and you can rent it out. You can earn money from that, and they will be happy, and they will buy a lot of whiskey or grappa from you, and you will earn some extra money from that. And so therefore, it is something which is helpful. But of course, you need to understand what people actually want, and this is what we and many other people are doing, and with the help of EU SME, of course, they do the same. That you have to understand the market. So because there's a famous golden rule, do to others what you want them to do to yourself, which works within your own culture, but it does not work across cultures. You have what's called the platinum rule, which is do to them what they want to be done to them. Full stop, never mind. So so product adaptation is a key point. And so it has been always the case, or often the case, that people come to us and say, help us with the marketing. And our normally reaction is, okay, wait a minute, before we talk about marketing, let's have a look at your product. So A, is it fitting for the market? And then for which segment is it fitting? So what kind of marketing to do? And so there are some characteristics of the needs and expectations which are the right for most Chinese travelers. So for instance, that they don't have so much time. So they don't want to spend so much time on a single activity. So again, maybe with some older people, this is changing, but for most people who are still working, they have maybe 10 days a year holidays. So, and they want, so if we said, okay, they want to learn about cooking, so the cooking class, which might be for a German, would be a whole weekend, 2 days. For the Chinese, it should be 90 minutes. Of course, they will not learn perfectly how to do that, but they have some idea, and then they want to go on to the next thing. Another thing is that Chinese outbound tourism has a lot to do with bragging, with telling the others, wow, I did something special. So help them with bragging, tell them that what they're doing is something very special, and that the King of Italy has been also staying in the same hotel, or this is the food Napoleon was eating when he was coming through here, or some modern Madonna has been eating this ice cream when she was giving a concert. So something which makes it special and unique. And you said documentation. So gives them a certificate and a video and photo opportunity so that they can prove to their friends that they really did this. Because in China, you don't believe anything. If somebody tells you, okay, I've been to Italy, proof. So show me. Because in China, you don't go to hell if you're not telling the truth, except you're a Christian. So that's the danger of being a Christian. You go to hell if you don't behave well. Helping people to get in contact with locals who join the interest, and adapting to the skill levels of the visitors. And I think this is something important. So if you have people visiting the cathedral in Palermo, there will be some who have no idea what the difference between Protestant and Catholic Church, and they just say, oh, beautiful or colorful, or that's it. But you will also have people who are very interested in European architecture, and they will know more about the Palermo Cathedral than you do, because they read 3 books in preparation and 5 online sources in preparation of their trip. And you can annoy the first group when you start to give them a detailed explanation and what is the name of the architect and the name of the painter of this painting and that painting. They don't care. But you can also annoy people if you say, well, you're Chinese, so of course you have no idea. Therefore, I will not tell you what's the difference between Baroque and Gothic, because you don't know anyway. They will be very annoyed because they say, hey, who are you talking to? And they will ask you questions Some people say this painting is done by this, but some people say, no, it's only from his school. What is true? You will say, oh, I don't know myself. So therefore, be careful what kind of customers you're addressing, and then have the right level of explanation. As I said, with this senior citizens universities, they employ and pay real university lecturers who can really answer all these questions. And if you have anything which is involving families with kids, it has to be educational. So kids are not supposed to have fun. They're not supposed to play. They're supposed to learn. And it doesn't matter how much it costs. For the kid, only the best and the most expensive, but it is something where the kid should learn something. So this is I think very different from, let's say, German families where it is, or Italian kids where let them run around and enjoy themselves. It's tough to be a kid in China nowadays. But this is what you can earn a lot of money if you offer good services. And so Professor Ferraris will speak later on. And I know you have universities in China teaching people Italian, so they can come to Italy to study. And this is something exactly what is many Chinese parents are looking forward to such things. So important point is that we need new KPIs, key performance indicators. So we have been in the past concentrating on arrival numbers. So this is, if you read a UNWTO press release or National Ministry, Tourism Ministry press releases, they'll say, hooray, we already are back to 93% arrival numbers from and so on. But the average length of stay of a Chinese tourist in most European countries, including Italy, including Germany, is 2 nights. Or even in Germany, went down from 2.2 to 1.8 nights. So obviously, if you can have more attractions for Chinese, which are adapted to what the Chinese people want, and you can keep them 1 day longer, so this is like 50% more arrivals, but if the average is only 2 nights. So, and as we said, we will have more repeat visitors and less first-time visitors. So that will be very important, at least to look at overnights and not at arrivals. But it's also to see what is the satisfaction. We have developed in the time when not much to do, there was not much to do about China. We have to develop something which we call meaningful tourism, which is a kind of, well, it's about sustainable tourism, but where we say you have 6 main stakeholders in tourism. You have the travelers, the host community, the people working in the industry, the companies themselves, the different levels of governments, and the environment. And all 6 have to have better quality, benefits, and satisfaction. If you have tourism where some of these stakeholders are not taken care of, it doesn't work. And we see this now. Environment is the obvious topic, but also if the staff is not taken care of, you have problems getting staff. If a host community is not integrated and consulted, then they start to throw stones at the guests, or on Mallorca, they throw horse apples at the cruise ship passengers because they don't want them. So this is something which is, I will talk a bit more later on if we have time. But this is something very important that you have to really to look that for all the 6 stakeholders that they are happy with what is happening in tourism. Otherwise, you are not successful in the long run. And one way to do this is, of course, to have private-public partnerships. That is not a new idea and not something specific for the Chinese market, but this is one way to get more people involved in that. And so for instance, in my hometown Berlin, where I grew up, so they have now established a citizens consultancy group or something, so that the local people, they are meeting, I think, every month or every 6 weeks with the tourism authorities, and they are told what are the new plans, or they can make complaints or suggestions how to develop tourism in Berlin. And this is something which, of course, it's not binding, it's just a consultation, but this is, I know the people who are organizing this, and of course it helps to have an early warning system with what people are annoyed about. And sometimes also people have some good ideas which can be put up, but at least you give the people, the locals, the feeling that their voice is heard. When, like, I don't know if you saw, for instance, the news the last few weeks, there have been demonstrations in Lisboa in Portugal because the locals say Airbnb and all this has been taking over all the apartments for the digital nomads, which are now all moving to Portugal. And so that for local people, they can't find apartments anymore. And so that the local people are doing demonstrations. We don't want to have tourists anymore in our city, which of course is not good marketing for your place. So brand building is of course important, and also for the Chinese market. And this is something I don't know if you can read this. Not very nice to look at in where we are now. So this is where the Chinese people went to in Italy. That's 2017, but the numbers are more or less the same. And so on top is Veneto, where you have 784,000 arrivals. And at the bottom, I'm afraid, is Sicily, where you have 13,000. So in 2017, you had 50 times more Chinese arriving in Venice than arriving in Sicily. This is obviously something we have to change, and we can change, but you can see this is what we have been talking about. We have the four top columns. So these are the regions where Venice, Firenze, Milano, and Roma are, and after that it goes down already dramatically. Then it's we have Tuscany, and then below that it is really these trips are mostly not leisure tourists. These are students, business people, family reunion, but very few of these is actually really leisure. So I tried to find out about Sicily, where people are going, and I found that some people go to Taormina because this is a spa, which somehow made it to the Chinese market. Somebody did good marketing for that. But other than that, I didn't find much evidence. Well, there were a few Chinese in the aircraft I came this morning, so there is hope. but still, really, when I talk to people in China, and I say Sicily, when I explain this is this big island at the football of Italy, Italy is the leg, then they say, yeah, okay, they from a map, they have an idea of how Italy looks like. So, and that there's a big island, they know that, but what exactly you can do there, how it is, and it's not only Sicily, it's also of course Napoli. So everything south of Rome has not yet been discovered. But as we said, this is what the Chinese people are now going for. And for marketing, it may be surprising, but if you go to the end of the text, we clearly see that most of the money which is spent on social media marketing is wasted, because most of the money is spent on creating wonderful videos or having WeChat accounts with 500 followers or 1,000 followers. So it's not user-generated content, but it is content generated by us. And the Chinese have a very good idea about what is propaganda. and how much you should believe it or not. So this is advertisement. This is, of course, you're saying my destination is the best in the world. What else? That's what you're paid for. And we have a key opinion leader. And you give them $50,000 and they say, this is the most beautiful place in the world. Again, the consumers in China are clever enough to understand this guy has been paid for that. So there is a company called Dragon Trail in China. We work with them closely, and they publish every week rankings for WeChat and for Weibo, so the two big social media channels in China. And you can see from these numbers, hopefully you can see them, so that even the best, even at the time, this is from end of February, when in China, everybody was searching for travel news again. So you can really expect that lots of people are looking, but you can see that there were only very few of this which had more than 10,000 views, which for China is absolutely nothing. So nobody is looking at this. And also this is the same for Weibo. You can see how wonderful you have 1 million followers, but how many people have been looking on your post on Weibo? 0.1%, or some cases 0.01%. So this is something where clearly social media in China are important, but what you have to do is user-generated content. So you have platforms like Mafangbo and Xiongyo and others, which are like TripAdvisor, something like that. So where people are discussing best tiramisu in Milano, and this is what people believe. So, and therefore recommendation marketing, so helping those people who are here, that they are streaming something. I'm here, look how wonderful the landscape is, and that's the director of the hotel, and he came down to say hello, and the director says, I'm very happy that Chinese people are coming to our hotel. This is something which is much more convincing, and this will be maybe only 1,000 or 2,000 people look at this, the friends and friends of friends of that traveler, of your customer. But these people will they will believe that if their friend is doing that this is true, and B, it is very likely that the friend of somebody rich enough to come to Europe is also rich enough to come to Europe. So therefore, it will be targeting the right kind of people. And so that's why I said expats are important. So if you have some Chinese people who already are here, or if you have some Chinese students at Palermo University, so give them 100 euros a month to say, okay, do a post, my life as a Chinese in Palermo. And this will be much more convincing than anything else. So, and, or you can organize the Chinese students at Palermo University. They do an outing, you bring them somewhere for free and invite them for dinner. So everybody will be happy and tell people about this. Or invite people from the Chinese embassy in Rome and say, okay, how about you come for a weekend? We invite you, you can come, and how about visiting us? So for the tourism fair. So that these people will all tell their friends, oh, they have been so friendly, they invited us, and it's much better than we thought and very new. So this is where, so social media marketing, yes, but and of course, better invest the money into increasing the quality of your product so that the people say, wow, and tell their friends about it. That is a better investment than giving some companies lots of money and entering like a black box, and they say, yeah, it has a big effect. But if you look at the numbers, it has not. So when we talk about this communications and distribution channels, we have things which are absolutely necessary. For instance, payment systems. This is a big topic. Before the pandemic, it was already very common in China that they were using WeChat Pay and Alipay, so mobile payment with your smartphone. And if they would come to Europe, if you could offer this in your shops or in your hotel, they would be happy that they, okay, that was an extra. Now, in the last 3 years, China has become practically a cashless society. So because for the pandemic, people were not supposed to touch money. So now, if you don't accept Alipay and WeChat Pay, the Chinese will not come, or they will turn around and go say, I go to another shop, I go to another hotel. If you say, oh, we are happy to have Chinese people here, but you're not even accepting mobile payment, then this is we don't have cash. And we have been discussing before that those Chinese who carry cash around, they're not used to have cash, so they're careless, and then the pickpockets know Chinese are a very good target. Because in China, pickpockets now have a bad time because there's nothing to steal, because people don't have cash in their pocket anymore. So even before the pandemic, when I was in China 2019, I had my Chinese assistant having to pay always my taxi, because the taxi drivers would not accept cash. They would not accept credit cards. And if you're not having a bank account in China, you can't use Alipay and WeChat Pay. At least you could not in 2019, I think. So next month I will go back to China. I will see how it has developed. But this is something which is really important. And so have a lot of this apps, and you have to be visible in the Chinese media, but as we said, in the right way. Okay, I can. So so I mentioned Mafangwo, Xiongyo, because Chinese travelers are much more likely, or everybody's doing that they share their travel experience, and they exchange tips with each other, so that they see this kind of obligation that they tell their fellow Chinese friends what they found out. So therefore, again, if you follow this, what are the discussions? So again, better pay somebody to look at Mafangwo, and if somebody is discussing where could you go in Italy, and the people don't have any idea, then you have somebody saying, hey, there's also this and this places which are very nice as a user. So that will be much more interesting. So having what is called KOC, key opinion customers, instead of KOLs, key opinion leaders, and using what we use, warm square, word of mouth and word of mouse, computer mouse. So that is what you should do. Yeah, I'm skipping some stuff because of time. And so yes, maybe just something to say that is beside the traditional ways of you working with tour operators. So there's also the opportunity that a lot of non-tour operators can be your customers. So all the banks have VIP clubs for their best customers, and they organize trips. You have, of course, Porsche car owner club, and you have there's even one club where you have to have 2 Porsches to be a member. 1 Porsche is not enough, and the same, of course, also for others. And this senior citizens universities or other such things. So this is also worthwhile. If you have people interested in something like, well, for instance, for Italy, classical music. So so that is also clearly something where you can have a lot of music schools or music universities in China connecting to music universities. in Italy to bring people here. And all these people will stay longer, spend more money, and so on. And then there are still fairs. And of course, we have been saying this, more Chinese people now organize the trips themselves, but many of them still do this with the help of tour operators. So therefore, it makes sense to go to fairs. And the next one will be next month, and that will be in Guangzhou, the GITF, the Guangzhou International Travel Fair. And we will organize a conference there. So if you happen to be in China, also for the people online, if you happen to be in China on the 20th of May, make sure you come to Guangzhou and take part in the conference. It's free. And this will be the first major opportunity after the pandemic to meet the Chinese tour operators and see who is there and who is new. And then the other two big fairs is the ITB China, which will be in September in Shanghai. So GITF is in the south in Guangzhou, ITB China is in the east in Shanghai. And then in November, COTTM, China Outbound Travel and Tourism Market, is in the north in Beijing in November. So these are the three main fairs. And still it is useful to go there, especially to look for smaller specialized tour operators to work with. So that's the end of the second module. So again, happy to receive some questions.
Thank you very much, Wolfgang. We have a lot of questions also coming from the online attendees. So I think we can group them into broader, let's say, questions, since some of them tend to end up on the same topic, just not to spend too much time on specific issues. So I would like to start with one question that might potentially have already been answered during your presentation. So we are asked if it makes sense to advertise some locations based on sport among Chinese tourists. The example that's raised is, does it make sense, for example, to advertise Milan as the home of AC Milan and the Internazionale Club Milano?
Yes, so that's a good example, because lots of Chinese people are very interested in football, and that is a very sad topic that the Chinese national team has not been very successful. They only made it one time to the FIFA World Cup, and they had 3 group games, and they did not even score a single goal and went out of the group. And even so, Mr. Xi Jinping is a big fan of football. They have not done very well on the national level. And actually, tomorrow, the Super League, the first league in China, is starting again, which was announced 2 weeks ago, very sudden. But they have no leadership. So the Chinese Football Association, all the leaders have been put into prison for corruption. So that there might be some connection between the lack of success and this fact. But therefore, lots, and this is really hundreds of millions of Chinese people, follow the Italian football, the Spanish football, the British football, and the German football, and maybe the French as well. So to have a program for football fans and say, okay, you can visit the stadiums, and maybe you can meet a former player, if not an actual player. I think most of these big football clubs, they have kind of ambassadors, former players who do this marketing stuff. So you can have a photo with these guys, and maybe then see one actual game for live. That will be something very helpful. I don't think that it's enough to say they go to Milan, even though I know that both teams are very successful at the moment. But so if you do this for a couple of other places as well, but so a football trip, and maybe again having a half-day training, so not a very serious one, but a little bit kicking a ball around with some former player or something, that would be very helpful. Yeah, no, this is something clearly where you have very rich Chinese people. They fly in just for a Champions League game, but so for the not so rich people, so football for Europe and certainly for Italy is a very good topic.
On the same topic, more or less, another question that was partially answered during the presentation, but I think it might be interesting to spend a couple more words and to expand a little bit on this idea. We're asked if it's relevant to provide tailor-made programs, tailor-made activities for kids of different age groups, if this can be appealing for the parents organizing the trip.
Yes, yes. So if you have groups where you have parents with their kid, and in many cases it's not just mama, papa, kid, but it will be like 2 or 3 couples with their kid respectively. So we have 6 adults and 3 kids, or you have 3 generation groups. You have grandparents, parents, and kid. These groups, what they will do is only for the kid. So the kid will be the center of the attention, and they will do visiting theme parks and stuff. But of course, also if you can do for the kids some special activities. So, for example, I know we have been working with a science museum in Belgium, and they had a program where they had a full day program for Chinese kids about the environment. So they were going to different places in the museum, and they were learning something about the biospheres and how all this is connected. And the parents during the day they got rid of their kid and they could do something for themselves. And so in the evening the kids would be delivered back to the hotel. That was quite successful. And so and of course you can do also real summer camps or language trainings, stuff like that. You have to be aware of the fact that these kids are single child from a rich family who never in their life heard the word no. So it will for most of them it will not be easy to tame them, and so there will be spoiled brats that you have to take into account. Not all of them, of course, but quite a few of them. But then the good news is that parents invest endless amounts of money into the career and the qualifications of their kids. So if this is something, and as we said before, you have to emphasize that this is something where the kids learn something, where they will get an advantage over the other kids in their class, rather than saying this is something where the kids will have a lot of fun or something like that. But yes, so the princes and princesses, they run this kind of groups, and whatever they want to do, this is what everybody is doing.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience potentially? Please.
I actually have a question, because we've been talking about hospitality. Because I've been traveling to China several times. I've seen that the standards in hotels are very high at a very reasonable price. So what should hotels provide in Italy and be considered at a high standard for Chinese tourists?
Yes, no, that's a very relevant question, because well, in China the wages are not as low as they used to be, but still you simply have much more people in the hotel working there, so it's much more likely that there's somebody around helping you with anything, because well, yeah, they can afford to have more a bigger workforce because they don't have to pay so much money. And this is something, of course, yeah, you cannot easily compete with that. I think one part of is clearly to see what are the special interests of the people, and try also do what you call concierge services, so that you're already offering them from the hotel, for instance, a guided tour for 2 or 3 people in a limousine with a Chinese speaking driver tour guides. That this is something the hotel is already offering for individual travelers, so they don't have to find out this somewhere else. But then on a more general level, we also have a online training for front staff people, where so just who are really encountering the customers. And Chinese have also often have a bad name among the people working in the reception or in the shop, because they are considered to be rude and demanding and pushy and stuff. And there's a magic bullet for that, which is teaching your staff 10 words in Chinese. And so the moment the lady at the reception or whoever is able to say ni hao, hello, or huan ying, or ilu fang qian, have a nice trip, or something, the Chinese customers will say, oh, you know some Chinese, which has no practical value, but that shows you try to be friendly to the Chinese. You show that you are happy that the Chinese are coming. And this for Chinese people is very important, because they are always anxious that we don't like them or we treat them second class. So if somebody shows the interest in the Chinese customers, or you teach them a little bit so that they can ask the Chinese customer, where do you come from? And they say, okay, I'm from Sichuan, that they can answer, oh, this is where you have the hot food, right? They will say, oh, you know about my place. This will change the atmosphere completely. So instead of shouting at people, hey, faster, I want my key, they will start to chat, and they will feel our family. So, and this is, I think, for many situations, this is something very simple.
What about Chinese translations? What about things?
Yes,
That
no,
should be in some rooms or in.
Yes, no, certainly. I mean, there is. It is also a sign of respect towards the Chinese customers that you are, or maybe talk of respect. I better sit here so you can't see me. So it's a sign of respect that you are using also signage. So I give an example. In Auckland, New Zealand, at the airport, they have their signage in 2 languages, in English and in Chinese. And obviously, and they have like a departure hall this way. So you can assume that somebody from China who made it to Auckland is able to find out where's the departure hall. You have this icon of this aircraft going up, and you see where the guys with the luggage are walking towards. Obviously, this is a departure hall, and they probably know the word departure in English as well. So there's no real reason why they should put the Chinese characters for departure there as well. But they should do this exactly because this is the biggest non-English speaking source market they have. And this is to show to the Chinese visitors at the airport, we care about you and we do something special for you. And therefore, of course, also for the hotel, if you have some information, for instance, something about a QR code, and if you scan it, so not paper, that's 20th century. And then they have in Chinese 1 page the history of our hotel, and if it's a family-run hotel, even the better, with a photo of the grandfather who started it, so you give some homely feeling, something like that. What you should not do is having signs only in Chinese, which are signs what you should not do. So I've seen that you have a sign, no smoking, so a cigarette crossed out, and then underneath written no smoking in Chinese. And then the Chinese, of course, are offended because they say, okay, you are implying that we are the only ones who are not too stupid to understand the sign, and the only ones who are not following this restriction, which might be true. But but so if you have something where it says do not, then it should be in a couple of languages and not only in Chinese. But other than that, of course, even so, it is not necessary. If you have Chinese signage or a Chinese city map or a Chinese brochure or something, especially if you have it in other languages. So if you have it in Japanese and not in Chinese, that will be very bad. So, but it is, the Chinese are told by the government, you are an ambassador of China. And they think that what you do to them because they are Chinese, not because they are Mr. Wang or Mrs. Li. So therefore, they always think that that this is something which is connected to their being Chinese. So I can give you just one example from Milano. So we had a focus group some years ago in China, and there was one lady, she was about shopping, and she was saying, she went to Milano and she bought so many things, she needed a new suitcase. And she saw in the shop window, she saw a nice suitcase, and she went into the shop and she said she wanted to buy the suitcase. And the lady in the shop asked her, okay, how many things you have to put into your luggage? And then she said, no, this suitcase is too big for you. I have a better one for you, which is better buy this one. And this one was cheaper. And so then this Chinese lady was very happy that the salesperson did not try to sell her the most expensive one, but sell her really the one which was fitting for her. And she had the consequence. She said, this salesperson must have had some good experience with Chinese people in the past. That is why she did something nice to me as a Chinese person. So, which is something I as a German would never have thought about, that she did this because I'm a German.
But there's still several biases towards Chinese people.
Yes, yeah, of course.
At European level.
Of course, yes, and that's what the Chinese are aware of. That's what they are aware of, and that is what they are afraid of. And therefore, if you can show them, you don't have this bias. So that is very positive.
Another question is about fairs.
Yes.
You mentioned three big events. One in particular might be very interesting as we're talking about outbound tourism, and it's COTTM.
Yes.
Do you have more? Can you give us more information about this event?
Well, COTTM was the first foreign organized fair, and by a British company, and we have been working with them for like 10 years.
Dragon Trail?
No. This is a British company.
Yeah.
And they did this at the beginning. It was called Beijing International Travel and Tourism Fair, and so they are still relevant. Of course, before the pandemic, ITB China grabbed part of the market because the ITB is the most famous brand. But don't forget, China is a huge country. China is as big as Europe. So therefore, the people who go to a fair in Beijing and the people who go to a fair in Shanghai and the people who go to a fair in Guangzhou are different people. So therefore, and there are very few tour operators, maybe the online tour operators like Ctrip, they cover the whole country. But you have a lot of tour operators based in Shanghai, they cover East China. And certainly in the south, you have tour operators, they cover South China, but they are not relevant in North China. So therefore, again, it's a question, where do you see your main target group? So the people, well, very simple things, the people in Beijing might be more interested in sunshine because the weather in Beijing is more like in Northern Europe. The people in the south are not interested in sunshine. So if you want to bring people in the off season to here, maybe you better go to the south. If you want to do things which are connected to, I don't know, sailing or windsurfing, then you better to go to COTTM in the north, because this is something. So many times people ask us, I want to find the one Chinese tour operator who covers the whole country and will give a special care for my products. And this is a dream. That company doesn't exist. And so therefore, if you can, you have to go to all three of them. And if not, then choose the one where you say, okay, it's also a question of air connections, for instance. So if you have if one destination has better air connections from Beijing or better air connection from the south, then maybe that is a strong argument. And don't forget, at the moment, there's no big fair. There's a small tourism fair in Chengdu, but there's the fourth area is the West, Sichuan and Chongqing.
Yeah, we went to the first TTG in Chengdu, but then COVID arrived.
Yes,
and we
yes,
had
yes.
to
And
stop.
I know there's actually an Italian company which organized, but they don't do this anymore. And as far as I know, they will not start again, from what I heard.
I believe we can move forward with the presentation. If you have any other questions, please do not hesitate to write them. Should we not be able to answer them during the event, we will make sure to get back to you privately by email. So do not worry, please do write your questions and we will get back to you some way or the other. Thank you very much.
Yes, so this is also from my side. I promised that we will do our best to answer all questions, even afterwards. So, coming to the question, what will happen in the future? And you see this headline, which is a happy one. We had a shortage of coffins. There have been many people dying in China. We don't know how many, but certainly more than 1 million. Now we have a shortage of wedding dresses. Because in the last 3 years, you had a lot of people getting married, but not having a party because lockdown and COVID-19. So you have a lot of wedding parties happening in China right now. And of course, in China, if you're rich enough to a wedding, also is integral part of it is a honeymoon trip. So you will see a lot of honeymoon couples traveling around the world because the last 3 years they didn't have the opportunity to do that. So clearly the Chinese are as hungry after 3 years to travel than everybody else in the world has been. And what is something which actually surprised many people, including myself a bit, is if you read last autumn's papers, what does the European tourism industry has to do next year? It is all about making sure that you have high levels of safety and hygiene and enough mask and spanners for hand soap and stuff. If you look at Chinese social media from February, nobody is talking about the pandemic anymore. So nobody is discussing, is it safe to go to Italy or to another country? They discuss ticket prices and where to go to and the tiramisu in Milano. So this is something like a bad dream. So people have said, okay, it's gone. We don't talk about this anymore. So there's been no visible criticism of the Chinese government after people found out that for 3 years they suffered for nothing, because in the end COVID got the people. So therefore, this is something which is really positive for us. That's really that the Chinese are not afraid of traveling abroad, and some might wear a mask, but they have been doing this before the pandemic, without the pandemic anyway. So especially if you have a cold, then you don't want to other people catching cold from you. So the wish to travel has not changed, and a lot of trips which have been postponed will happen. It's not only honeymoon trips; it's also business trips. We have a lot of business trips, which are so-called business trips, where actually people are paid by the government or by their company to go on a trip, but basically it's because they have been, I don't know, working 25 years in a company or being a party member for 25 years, so they get a free trip to Europe as a bonus. And again, the last 3 years, this couldn't happen. So there's also 3 years of this kind of trips pent up, and so this will happen this year, next year as well. So, but what is the biggest change is clearly that so this mass market package tours are out. So there was a survey last autumn, and the people were asked, okay, what kind of travel form do you want to do in the future? And 7% said package tour, so running behind the tour guides, traveling together with people I only meet at the airport for the first time in my life. So this is something which is again, maybe, yeah, for first-time visitors from third-tier cities, yes, but for the majority of people, they want to do more specific things. And it might also be that in China, I also heard from some people that the pandemic taught, like everybody, also the people in China, how fragile life is and how easy it can be over, and that you better use your time well and do something meaningful with your time, and not just running around from one side to another and shopping the 5th and 6th Gucci bag, but do something more for which brings you more forward. So there are things which have not been changed, like the basic idea that Chinese people want to see the world with their own eyes, because they don't believe in their official propaganda. They don't believe what they read in the newspapers. They want to do this for social prestige, so to show the others that they can afford it, but also to show themselves. It's also something lifestyle. So that you can also prove to yourself, hey, I made it. Look, now I'm here in a 5-star hotel in Europe, and so how happy I am that my parents had around the world. How wonderful is that? So, or for the older people, I had no shoes. Following serious leisure interests. So you have so many people who are hobby photographers, golfers, and so on. Football, we just mentioned. So, and you still have, of course, people who follow what their idols are doing. So you have a lot of TV shows in China where you have some famous Chinese movie stars or TV stars traveling around the world, especially now going to unusual places like Iceland or something like that. And then, of course, a lot of people say, I also want to go there. But you have also more special things. We mentioned health, education, religion. In China, you're not allowed to call this religion. You have to say this is Christian culture. So there's you're not allowed in marketing to say this is people travel because they have religious belief, but you can package it. And shopping is still important, but shopping more for regional products, authentic products, maybe original products like pieces of art or something like that. So, and less so luxury goods, because you can buy them in China, and also now the wardrobes of most ladies are full. So this idea at the beginning that you have to catch up is no longer the case. What is new is interest in nature and in healthy lifestyle. So on social media, you have a lot of cooking classes for healthy food, even also for frugality, so that how can you do something with less money? So you have the first generation of hippies in China, so tangping, that's called, the lying flat. So people will say, okay, have any special parents or anything, so never make it to the top, even so I work very hard. So I get out of the rat race and I say, okay, I earn enough money, I can survive, but otherwise I can sleep longer, and I write poetry, and I talk to my friends, and make music. And so these people are also existing. Yes, thank you so much. Again, thank you for the perfect organization today. So a lot of people have been saying in surveys, I want to go to places where there are not so many other Chinese tourists. So there have been people like saying, well, if I go to Santorini in Greece, where all the tourists there are Chinese people, I can stay at home. Why should I go there if all the people I see are Chinese people? So rather going to new places, and also something which is probably we didn't really realize is that last summer, China had the biggest heat wave in the history of mankind. There were 900 million people affected. And for 2 months, the temperature was 40 degrees plus in all across Central China, sorry. And I think I have a slide about this. In Chongqing, in China, there was one night where the minimum temperature was 37 degrees. So that's the temperature of blood. Maybe you're not so shocked, but for the Chinese, this is something new. And not everybody in China has air conditioning. So this is so therefore now 85% of the Chinese people say, I'm interested in sustainability. I'm interested in learning what in Europe, for instance, people are doing for climate change mitigation and so on. So this is something new. So this old image that the Chinese don't care and they throw their rubbish around is not completely true anymore. So the question was forecasting, and I'm crazy enough to do a forecast for this year and next year. So you better do a forecast for 2050, like our politicians do, because then nobody will remember it, and you probably will be dead by then. But so we think that for the first half of 2023, we will see about 20 million border crossings, so trips out of China. And for the second half, 80 million, so that this is together like 100 million. And for next year, we go back 170 million. So we will be back to the 2019 level. For Europe, and this is without Russia, I think we will be a bit slower. And the argument is also it takes longer to get the air connections back and the visa and so on. So for the first half, I think we will see in the next 2 months, mostly about 2 million people coming to Europe, and in the second half, 4 million, which will be like about half of 2019 level. And 2024, going back to the about 11 million arrivals we had in 2019. And that also to answer the question about the air capacity, so that by 2024, we will be back to the capacity we had in 2019, because this is clearly also, of course, a question of demand. So how many seats are sellable? And we see, for instance, Lufthansa, I think as of today or next week, bringing back the A380. So many airlines said that the A380 is over and they have been retiring the biggest aircraft in the world we have. But now, as at the moment we have less flights, and they bring the biggest aircraft so that they can put 580 people in one aircraft. So that also shows that there is a reaction to the growing demand. So for us in Europe, we have to work harder than before because we have more competition. We have the domestic tourism I mentioned as something to stay in China is seen as patriotic, and also you're not supposed to be poor or stupid if you stay in China anymore. So other international destinations to be discovered are becoming on stream, which is also Africa, South America, So places where until now very few Chinese people have been traveling to. And so you have the examples that if you look at the numbers of Chinese people going to France, they don't go to France, they go to Paris, Paris and Paris. And then a few people go to the other places. And for Italy, we already mentioned, they go to the 4 cities in the north, and that's it. So therefore, you have to, if you are not one of these 4 cities, you have to tell them, okay, we are also here and we have, this is the reason why you should come here. This is our special program we are offering to you. And for the 4 cities, maybe football was the answer. Visit the football stadiums. I think all the teams, all the cities have successful, well, at least Milan, Roma, successful teams. So shopping is also still there, but we have Hainan as a competitor. And yeah, big point is that you don't have so many people newly getting rich enough to travel. So therefore, you cannot build on, there will be always new people coming for the first time. So therefore, if you are a famous destination, you have to work harder because people may already have been at your place that you have to bring them back a second time. So what can you do for provide new reasons to travel? For instance, in China, there's something called red tourism, so communist tourism. And domestically, last year you had, or 2021, you had in China a cool 1 billion trips. 1 billion trips. So almost every Chinese person one time going to some places to celebrate Communist Party's history and history of communism in general. Many of these are just school classes going to the next monument. But you have this also in Europe. So in Germany, we have, of course, Marx and Engels' birthplaces. Now, I've just been to Albania. And for instance, in communist times, Enver Hoxha was a friend of China. So Albania was the only friend of communist China in Soviet Union times. But of course, also in Italy, I know your current government will not be happy about that. I know that. But of course, you have also Garibaldi and a lot of freedom fighters. So I'm not saying that he's a communist, certainly not a communist, but somebody who has been fighting for unification of the country, which for China is something good. So other things are so that you have you give people a story. I mean, so if they want to discover something, you have to tell them what is there to discover, what is so specific. And so it's also, I think also in Italy, of course, you have a lot of art. You have a lot of active artists, of living art producers, and that can be arts and crafts, can be also musicians and so on. So there's all these things that you do workshops and meetings and visits. So you visit the studio of a painter or of somebody working with porcelain or with clay or something like that. So you can have nice photos and you can meet the people and you can show your friends, hey, look, I have this. And I have a friend in Britain. They've organized this, that they move around to young unknown painters. So like 10 of them, and they Chinese art lovers, they buy a painting from every of these 10 painters for £2,000, £3,000. So they have something nice they can show their friends back home. And also maybe they are lucky and one of these 10 guys becomes famous and they can sell, in 20 years, they can sell the painting for $1 million. So it's also kind of investment, like gambling. Chinese people love gambling. So by the way, casinos is also a very important topic. You have, I think, well, you invented the casino. I've been in Venice in the very first one. So now it doesn't work anymore. Okay, oops. And I can give you this also information. There is the European Travel Commission we talked about just now. So they started in 2021, rather unnoticed. The timing was not so perfect. Something which is called Europe Invites the Curious. And so they are saying exactly the same thing, that they say for non-European visitors, including Chinese, we should concentrate our marketing and our communication on those people who are really interested, who are curious about us. And they have 3 topics: nature, culture, and you can see here, nature, culture, and history. And so they have the same argument: bring people here who are really interested, they will stay longer, and they will spend more money. It cannot be copied. So and this is, so you can Google it. You can easily find the page, and so you can also, as a destination, you can become a member of that. And I think this is exactly the right direction. Say, don't go for tens of thousands of people who come for one night and pay as little as possible. Rather go for people who come for longer and pay more. And you will have more fun with this kind of customers. And so these are some examples from the website. And I think the second one, that should be Italy, right? Tuscany or something. So so you can have your photo there as well if you join this program. Okay, I will skip this. And yeah, for Italy, using this curious thing, we mentioned a few of these things already. So differentiate: are you catering for first-time visitors or for repeat visitors? Are you catering for sun seekers from the north or for fun seekers from the south? So are you attracting curious young people, so in small groups who are activity orientated, or maybe interested in spirituality / religion? And so many of them will have interest in self-drive tours, so renting a car, driving around, or renting an RV. That is one of the big trips in the pandemic in China. People have started to use caravans, so recreational vehicles, and drive around in the caravan. So this is something which has become very, very common. And we mentioned you have this 3 generation groups where you have grandparents, parents, kids, and the middle generation is paying. So that is sometimes to say thank you to their parents who helped them through university, and now they have a good job. And maybe also in the pandemic, the families learned that solidarity in a family is worth something. So they will be more willing to take the old folks with them. So senior couples. So we have what is called empty nesters. So those people where the kids have their own career, and so they don't have to care anymore for them. So you have now these people in their 50s and their 60s who say, okay, now we do something good for us for the first time, and we spent, and this will be love them luxury travel, and also connected to spa, health, pampering themselves, so things like that. And yeah, so special interest. China is the 4th biggest Christian country in the world. Horse riding is a big trend for the really rich people. So after tennis and golf, now horse riding, which is very expensive in China. For the north of Italy, of course, we have the 2026 Olympics. So that will also be a good opportunity. And well, we did some research, and clearly for the Pyrenees and we found clearly the average time a Chinese skier spends on the mountain is 90 minutes a day. So that, and this is a key point. So the rest of the time they do other things. And it's the same camping. We said Chinese people like camping now much more than before. But for Chinese people, camping means to go in a group of 10 or 15 people. So it's more fun together, and expecting from the camping ground that there will be a good restaurant, and in the evening, maybe a concert or some entertainment for them, or some drones making pictures into the sky. No fireworks, that's old fashioned. So that's over. So to use the same word, camping or winter sports, skiing, but from the content is very different for the Chinese people. So, and yeah, football was already mentioned, and history, Roman Empire, Pompeii. So you have, I mean, come on, who else has more to offer than you? Sorry? Yes, and Syracuse, and so on and so on. So, and the last point, why we do have to do something new, I mentioned this already. So also the Chinese learned last year, if not before, climate change is not in the future. It is here, if we like it or not. And you have this photo from the Yangtze River. So you have seen photos from the Po and other rivers in Europe as well. But also the Yangtze River last summer practically dried up. And so therefore, also the Chinese are much more aware of that topic, and interested in that topic than they were before. And so therefore, if you have to show some good initiatives in this field, that will also be a topic to talk about. So yes, and again, I'm sorry I had to put this up. So the hottest place last summer in Europe was Syracuse with 48.8 degrees. So this is a superlative you can do without. But in this book we published at the beginning of the year, I wrote in the introduction the sentence, in 25 years, the climate catastrophe and its economical, political, and social consequences will probably put an end to international tourism. But for this period of time, China will play an important role in global tourism. So hopefully I'm wrong. And after 25 years, we still have international tourism, but whatever, the Chinese market for the next coming time is very, very important. Last point to mention is we are doing, after 3 years break again, something called the Chinese Tourism Welcoming Award, which will be given in Guangzhou at the fair. So if you have been doing anything good for the Chinese market, please apply. It's free of charge, no money involved. And but you have to apply before the 28th of April, rather soon. And if you again Google it or just contact me, so just send us some links to materials, what have you been doing for the Chinese market, and we will certainly, the jury will certainly look at this with a friendly eye. That's it. So now I hand over to my dear colleague Ferraris, unless we have a few questions.
Yeah, exactly. From the online attendees, we have no questions currently. So unless we have any questions coming from the audience, I think we can move forward. So I would like to kindly invite Francesco to take the floor and focus on the Italian specificities for Chinese outbound tourism market.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, and good afternoon to everybody. Good afternoon to everyone attending here in person, and also to the ones that are following us online. And first of all, I'd really like to thank Giada Platania and SICINDUSTRIA for hosting this event, this important topic we're discussing today, and obviously my good friend Wolfgang and Davide for the first part of this meeting that I think just gave us some optimistic clues and information on what's about to come. I took some notice before starting my intervention, which is entitled, as you can see, Welcome Back to Italy and the New Trends in Chinese Experiential Tourism and the Valorization of the Sicilian territory, because many things have already been said and very interesting ones. And my job is always hard to speak after Wolfgang because he is very wise, very rich in content. So I just try briefly in this last half an hour we have together to share some pictures, some visuals to complete the already reached introduction and discussion that Wolfgang just gave us. Some information that came through my mind while he was speaking, actually, in order to be very, very precise and very concrete and talking about things that are happening these days or about to happen. We've seen many forecasts. One is very close to us, very near, speaking of Italy, and is coming next week. And it's the Salone del Mobile in Milan. So it just comes to my mind that that will be the first real test in order to understand if some of the things that we've done so far have been done well, first of all, and more if the opening of the borders from China has an actual output in terms of arrivals. Why am I saying this? Because, as you know, January 9 was the day when officially the borders were open for flights between Italy and China. And March 15, so a month ago, a perfect month ago, Italy was put into a group of 40 countries that were allowed to host groups of tourists again. This is obviously good news, and it's also good to know that other important countries very close to China and to China tourism, like Korea, for example, South Korea or Japan, are not included in this list. So it's interesting to see if what Wolfgang said, that Chinese people have been traveling to their home countries, closest friends or countries like Korea, and if now they can't, and they will try to do a long haul and coming here in Italy. Next week, a good news that I have is that China is the second country after Italy that has been buying tickets for the Salone del Mobile in a pre-order. So from China, it's the second after, obviously, right after Italy. So this is good news. There's the visa issue of issuing time and schedule that is more of a question mark. But again, the information I have from the consulates in China and is that everything's going smooth, and the procedures are quick now. So we can be moderately optimistic, but next week, after next week, we'll be, I think, more optimistic for sure. So Salone del Mobile, the first one, and many things have been said also about sports. I feel that the questions are more coming on this topic. I was in Milan AC a couple of days ago discussing some opportunities in order to attract Chinese enthusiasts. And Wolfgang, an information that I think it's interesting to know is that China has pretty much the same number of Christians like of Milan followers, the football club. Pretty much the same, because they told me right around 80 million people. So every time you talk about Christians, I think also about Milan, which it's the devil team, football team, actually. No, Il Diavolos. It's a bit strange, but nonetheless, it's important. It must be the first club in Europe, as long as what they told me is true in terms of fans from China. And definitely, yeah, they confirm that everything you design for them related to sports is interesting and valuable, with a flavor of training or learning something at the same time. Like many times Wolfgang stressed, this is a topic that Chinese people always have in their mind. And about one last thing before I start on the forecasts, you know that SEA, Milan Airports, is one of our board members and our most important partners as Italy-China Council Foundation. And last week, they just delivered the first official forecasts from the airport of Milan, which, you know, right after Rome is the second hub for Chinese tourism. The data is pretty interesting. They officially said in this conference that for this summer, July, August, we expect from Asia landing in Milan 480% more Asian travelers compared to 22. 480% more. It's huge as a percentage, but it's still 200,000 persons. 200,000 from zero to 200,000. That's the number, but nonetheless, it's obviously interesting. And the air capacity, because the companies were attending the conference as well, at that time will be 70% of the normal routine. And in the end of my presentation, I will tell you exactly which companies will go back to flight to China, back and forth, obviously. So first things first, what we're talking about, three topics: Sicily's three strategic assets, attracting tomorrow's Chinese tourists. So I just try to put into images and to some ideas what the profiling of new interests that Wolfgang already discussed with us. And the second, profiling and segmentation of the Chinese FIT tourists. This is thanks, the data that I will share with you are provided by InTarget, which is an important operator in Milan and a consultancy agency that has done a very interesting work of researching on the new trends that Chinese travelers will be eventually showing to us in the next few months. And the third, as I mentioned, Italy-China air traffic update. So I just briefly give you an update on data and frequencies and routes. But first of all, where were we at? Because many times this afternoon, we've been hearing about what the world was like before 2020. And in Italy, especially, this is something I discussed with Wolfgang many times. It's so hard to get actual data on Chinese tourists coming to our country. That's because, you know, probably many times the same person, he's been counted more than one time from the hotels, from the hotellerie sections, from the airport and the visa and the customs. So it's very hard to tell exactly, but we pretty much know by ENIT data that we had in 2018 5 million people for overnight stays. And if we're talking about actual people coming to our country, the number splits from 1.5 million to 3 million people, depends on the sources. But that's the general situation. Like in Sicily, actually, we have 26,000 persons people coming to Sicily, which was in 2018 actually 25% more than the number of 2017 that Wolfgang just showed. So the increment was something interesting that we could see. And probably 2019, 2020, the increment would have been even greater and very interesting to see if obviously shouldn't the pandemic struck, obviously, because as you know better than me, you've had the chance to host President Xi Jinping right in March 2019, right after his visit to Rome to President Mattarella to sign the MOU on the Silk Road. And this trip to Sicily, which was interesting also because you know, I'm a fan, and actually I'm a Chinese language and culture teacher, so I'm very I pay much attention on the protocol and the business etiquette on Chinese persons traveling. That was a very interesting business case because President Xi Jinping just broke the protocol, and with this young boy with the puppets, he touched him and he hugged him. This was this warm approach that the president had towards Sicilian culture was really something to look after. But then again, we then becoming broke, and we hope we will capitalize in the future. Obviously, actually, the operators from Sicily should be very aware of this situation, maybe trying to find ways to capitalize that in the future when encountering buyers or political partners. You know, this is very interesting and important. Every time I go to China and I visit a company, one of the first things that the company show me is the picture with the president, the actual president or the former president, when the president came and visited the factory, the plant, whatever. Even though sometimes you can see the picture of the president very, very far away, walking away of the stand of the booth or something, but still the picture is big and is one of the first things they show you. So if you will go to COTTM or to other important fairs and events, it's important to show the political side of the visit of Xi Jinping, because he doesn't travel a lot. He hasn't traveled a lot in these last 3 years, but one of the last places he went to right before COVID was Sicily. So, but the evolution of the Chinese tourists in Italy, FIT, we've heard this acronym before today, free independent travelers. You know that China tourism is evolving towards a more mature phase, moving from group travel limited to best known cities to individual travel. In 2019 versus 2018, actually, we already witnessed a change in this sense. 20% more of reservations in general, 20% of reservations during the national holidays, which you know are very, in China, those are the periods where you can travel. Then we'll see them together because I prepared a slide just to keep them in mind again. But 59% of persons were traveling outside national holidays because they had valuable experiences that they can do all over the world. And this is a big number, very interesting, because it's not easy to travel outside of China, if you can afford it economically, but also on your based on your routine and your job. If it's not May 1st, the golden week right after May 1st or right after October 1st, it's very hard to travel. But once again, in 2018, 59% of the travelers went outside of China, not during national holidays, not necessarily during national holidays. And given this fact of the FIT traveler, I'd like to share with you here in Sicily a good practice, let's say, one of the best practices from one of the best in class, let's be honest, regions in Italy, which is Tuscany. And sometimes it's good to see what the others are doing, you know, in terms of innovation. I like to share this story, this experience from Tuscany, because I witnessed myself during a project. And of course, many Chinese people went to Tuscany because of the mall, because of Florence, obviously, but also because of the mall, which is a very high-end luxury shopping mall that, you know, where Chinese people tend to go in big numbers. But once again, we found out that an interesting and growing number of them were going to Florence to find out the places where this poet, Xu Zhenmo, went and dined and slept, because he was a romantic poet that died in a airplane accident very young. He was the author of A Night in Florence, a poem that pretty much every boy and girl study at high school in China. Actually, he died in England. His tombstone is in College Gardens, King's College Gardens in England. And so this is a typical situation where I witnessed myself groups of enthusiasts of poetry, of culture, going along the places from China of these important poets. So given this fact, what can we say about Sicily? I feel like, like we say in Chinese, Sicily Dao, okay, the island of Sicily. Obviously, we should try to capitalize on this approach, taking into consideration 3 strategic assets that the territory here has, obviously, like Tuscany, of course. Chinese tourists love Italy's quaint rural villages, beautiful sceneries, astonishing artistic small cities like SME Centre, of course, because many don't have at home any chance to experience such an intimistic qualitative lifestyle due to the size of Chinese huge cities. As Italy-China Council Foundation, established a campus of our foundation in Chongqing. Maybe not all of us have heard of this city, Chongqing, in China, but Chongqing has 33 million people, inhabitants, like half of the population of Italy, half of the population. So if you're a Chongqing Ren, like you said in Chinese, person living in Chongqing, you pretty much dream 365 years a day of having a chance of sitting down and drinking a coffee or eating an ice cream on a place like this. And trust me, I say it not because of propaganda, but because I have 4-5 staff members in our office there. And they have to commute every day, morning and evening, from the office to their homes, 2.5 hours by car or by train. 2 hours, like if I worked in Turin and I had to go from the Milan city center to Turin every morning, every night. It's a stressful life. This period, it's a very stressful life. So you have these 3 assets, which are strategic: cultural heritage, enogastronomic tours, or enogastronomic in general, wellness and healthcare to be stressed. Why? Just a few references. Why cultural heritage? This chart speaks by itself. Italy is the first country in the world in terms of number of UNESCO sites, 58. But the second one is China, 56. Each year we had 1, they had 2, we had 3, they had 1. I've witnessed the progression of this together with our minister in the last 10 years. And in Sicily, 7. That's a number you have to somehow to, you know why? Because it's strange to say, we as Europeans, I don't think that we have in the we have in our minds UNESCO like a drive to our, even to our cultural trips. I mean, it's like that. We don't have it anymore. Probably we're mature enough to not have it anymore. But every time I go to China to visit something, the first place where they take me is a UNESCO site. And probably because it's not a mature tourism at the level of ours. But nonetheless, these 2 countries have the 2 more thousands of years of age, history, and friendship relations. So it's something that must be stressful somehow. Second, enogastronomic tours. Obviously we could stay here and talk for hours about this, but if I had to just pick one thing out of this, it would be wine, probably. Terre Siciliane wine tour allows visitors to get to know the gastronomic territory of the region and also the procedures with which oil and wine are made. These kind of educational tours are very interesting. On a business side, I'm stressing the tone on wine for a specific reason. up until 2-3 years ago, Italy was only the 5th or 6th country in Europe to export wine to China. You know, it's hard to accept it as Italians, but France the first one, and then there were many others before us. But our center study in ICCF, in Italy-China Council Foundation, just released some new data. And Italy is the 3rd country all over the world in terms of export to China now, right after France and Chile. So this means that the brand naming of Italian wine somehow, little by little, step by step, is growing in importance. I was in Tuscany a couple of weeks ago, witnessing wine tasting in a beautiful farm, and I was with some Chinese tourists there, and I was very, very happy to see that they were coming back, and also knowing very well the Chianti culture, obviously, in that situation. Wellness and healthcare, again, strange to hear it with Chinese travelers, because up until 2019, the main driver we've always had the chance to hear about for them was shopping. In fact, we call it shopping tourism. Chinese tourism is a kind of tourism where shopping is a major driving force. And will it be like that in the future? There are a couple of different scenarios I'll show you with you right in a few minutes. But what we're very sure about is that wellness and healthcare will be driving forces as well. You see that the preferred vacation types of wealthy Chinese travelers, and this is the interesting job that InTarget, the agency I was talking in the beginning, has just done. Resorts, spa, and retreat are the first places in terms of percentage on this huge statistic group that they've been working on in this last year. 66% of them answered that my preferred vacation type is a resort or a spa. So a place where I can heal my body. Because again, living in that 33 million people city and doing that back and forth to your office every day, but more than everything, not being able to breathe clean air pretty much a good number of days in the year, where your air, the first thing you do when I'm there in Chongqing, every morning, the first thing I do is open my app, AQI, Air Quality Index. And if the number is like 450 and it's booming with a red light, I won't be able to go out and reach my office. I will stay at the hotel or the apartment working in my room, because even going out without a mask is very dangerous. Once again, just imagine that's your life for pretty much every day, every year. You dream of a resort or a spa to heal up your body, not only your mind, your soul. So staycation, yeah. Stay home because it's so stressful. Even to go somewhere else, yeah. When to travel, Chinese national holidays, just always keep in mind, Chinese New Year between January 21, February 19. So that's the period of time they travel a lot. Workers' Day, the Golden Week right after May 1, and October 1st, the National Day. But also San Valentino is a very important. There's San Valentino February 14, but in China they have two. And this is interesting, because I always say that one of the most relevant feelings Chinese people are seeking out of their country is romanticism. Because Chinese people are romantic people, very linked to the family idea, to the loving affair. Maybe you don't see them kiss in public because they're also very pudic, but romanticism is the thing that from the times of Mao Zedong and the realism of Orthodox communism, they are missing it a little bit, because in the past, if you think about poems of the 16th century, erotic poems of 16th century, it's something in China. And they feel like France, first of all, and then Italy are the place where they can be romantic. we have 150 students in this moment studying Italian in Milan at our school with an exchange program, 20 years old. You can imagine they're all living in Milan. They find out that the place where you can hang out in the night, find a girlfriend, find a boyfriend. You're a boy, you can find a boy. You're a girl, you can find a girl. Everything's possible. Something that's not possible in China, let's be honest, or a little harder. Okay, so this is a drive for them, being themselves, exchanging experiences, falling in love. It's something very, very researched. Obviously, all these ideas should be put into the right platforms, and I'm happy that Wolfgang already mentioned Mafonwa. This is just to open the minds a little bit, because when we think about marketing in China, digital marketing, we always say WeChat. We also say, I don't know, but you know, it's obvious. WeChat, you must be on WeChat, but there are so many other platforms, Mafonwa, HH Travel, for tourism, Xiaohongshu, Little Red Book. Xiaohongshu, probably now with TikTok, in China is Douyin, is the place where you go to see the tiramisu that Wolfgang said. Where do I go and check the pictures of our Milan tiramisu is done? Xiaohongshu. And also, I look at a video of someone in Milan, Chinese person, tasting it and showing me and explaining the feeling of it. These are a few words that looking at these platforms, just searching along these platforms, our academy came out with, just to show you and share some keywords, key terms that you can use in your communication to China, because they are very appealing for Chinese. I mean, appealing in the sense also that the algorithm will highlight them more. Many people are looking for typing these kind of words when they're finding, where should I go in vacation? Miran, fascinating. We've found it very often in Xiaohongshu, especially linked to Alberobello, for example, to Puglia. The majority of people talking about Alberobello Chinese people used this term, Miran, Thai Miran, they said. So very fascinating. Or La Main for the Cinque Terre, for example. Romantic, once again. Or Glamorous for Paris, Mélisses, also for Milan. Xiumei, gracious, for Zandschan in Holland, for example. Okay, so very quickly, the second part is about showing you the profile of these and the segmentation of these new Chinese tourists. And as I just mentioned, the surveyed pool, thanks to this in-target job, the service pool was on wealthy Chinese travelers. 108 million people covered all during 2022 by this agency, which has some offices in China. So it's interesting to see, because that was a period of lockdowns, you know. In 2021, actually China rose right after COVID, before any other country in the world. People were moving, were traveling, the economy rose up back to 8%. And everyone was, you know, we called that period revenge spending period, where people had this urgency of going back to travel, to buy stuff that wasn't just masks and alcohol, but buy stuff for them, products for their leisure. But then came 2022 in China, which was a nightmare, lockdowns. So that's the period where InTarget made this surveyed pool, so the people were in their apartments dreaming of escaping. What did they come out with? New profiles emerged in the post-COVID era. First of all, wealthy Chinese travelers describe themselves as, most cases, as career-focused, confident and creative. Regular and passionate travelers go abroad at least once every 6 months. Obviously, the rich, wealthy one, we're talking about wealthy one. The value education and cultural experiences seek to expose themselves to new environments and ways of life. And they are enthusiastic users of technology and mobile dependent. So these are the key features: career focused, creative, fashion conscious, and health conscious, but with a dependency on mobile that's very, very striking. Just one number to sum up everything. We spend, this is McKinsey numbers of last year. We as Europeans spend from 2 to 3 hours every day on social media, being that WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, mailings or whatever. In China, from 6 to 7 hours a day. It's daytime, pretty much. So it means that as soon as you wake up to the time when you go to bed, you are sharing your experience with someone. Being for work reason, for personal life reason, but in China it's pretty much the same thing, because working life and personal life are so much confused. But that's the time. So it's obvious that if you do an experience like Wolfgang said, you have to, in real time, being able to share it. So another key feature, we were talking about hotels. You know, sometimes hotels, I've been traveling all over Europe to train hotels, and they say, oh, but it's not a problem. We give them the free password for the Wi-Fi. Yeah, but you have like 3,000 Chinese, huge hotel chains, obviously, 2,000 Chinese persons. At the same time, on your Wi-Fi line, it crashes. It doesn't work. And 2 seconds after they try to go on, they just say, oh, this is third world. Internet doesn't work. Doesn't work because every one of them has a password. So there should be some technological features, obviously, to support them into this. Otherwise, you will lose them. Other predominant characteristics of these wealthy Chinese outbound tourist travelers of tomorrow or today, let's say, their passion for travel is matched with technology, like we said, but these affluent Chinese travelers are also parenting-focused workers. And here we're stressing the concept of Wolfgang, balancing their careers and family life, and they travel with their family. They will travel even more with the family-focused. 47 of surveyed audience declared to be parents of at least one child and own at least 2 investments for the future of the family. And 53% of respondents are focused on home life, have at least one child, and are full-time workers who spend time with family. You can't imagine the couple coming to Italy without the kid or the kids, and even sometimes grandma and grandpa, you know, the whole pyramid. So it's very important to include experiences for the little ones. Small groups, leisure, business is a thing together with leisure pretty much always. Outdoor camping or glamping, like we said, solo travel and small groups are other interesting things. And what about shopping? Just a quick few words. Up until 2019, the share of the Chinese luxury market on the globe, or let's say luxury, but made in Italy perfectly fits into this number. Purchasing that were made of the high-end products that we are very famous for, 35%. In terms of reality means that in 2019, every moment you were talking, 1 out of 3, more than 1 out of 3 purchasing of a good level, high-level product all over the world was done by a Chinese person, by a Chinese consumer. Be it in Tokyo, be it in Milan, or in Palermo, or in Canada, 1 out of 3 purchasing of a high-end product was by a Chinese. But look, only 11% of these purchases were made in China. Pretty much 90% of them were made outside of China. And this is key to understand what is the drive in their minds. But again, then COVID stroke, then this weak globalization in which we're living, also due to the war and the crisis we're facing, all these things are telling us that us, but also Bain and Alta Gamma, very important agencies, in the future, the weight of Chinese purchases made at home compared to those made abroad will be even bigger. In 2025, so in 2 years' time, that 35% will turn into 49%, which will mean 1 out of 2 consumers in the world would be Chinese, 1 of the 2 of our products. But no more 11% being made in China, but 28%. This means that traveling, probably, it won't be the first thing in their mind, because in their home country, in Hainan province, where all the free trade zone, all the boutiques are opening now, in other important free trade zone that they are building, they will be able to go and buy Gucci or Brunello Cucinelli, and at the same time living a kind of experience from that brand. So coming to Sicily or to Tuscany will be even more linked to experience culture, more than buying products and then rush to the airport. Or at least that's what obviously we wish, and pretty much will be like that. So, and last but not least, I promised to share a quick update on the flights, on the Italy, China, Italy air traffic update. And we will do it case by case, company by company, starting from the flagship company, obviously, of China, which is Air China. Air China from Milan will cover Shanghai, Beijing, and Wenzhou. So Shanghai, after 3-year absence of these important flights, is ready to restore direct flights to Shanghai. And it will be starting from March 26th. So they've just started again. It will be a daily flight from Milan to Shanghai. To Beijing will be daily, no more 3 flights a week like it has been in these last months. So the company already restored it. And Wenzhou, you know, this is an important, pretty much strange flight. I mean, at least for touristic reasons, but it's more to family reasons, because 90% of the people living in Italy come from Wenzhou in Zhejiang province. So connecting these cities is very, very key, very important. And Wenzhou will be 3 flights each week from Air China, but also Rome, because that was Milan. Also Rome will restore its flights with Air China from Beijing. 4 connections a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, operated by the new Airbus A350-900. And Hangzhou. Furthermore, from Rome, the already route of Hangzhou will be restored with 3 times a week. The other companies are, or at least I should say, the first one won't be ITA Airways, because ITA will not plan any flights to China. It has just been confirmed in Milan during the bid, sadly, but it's like that. But we'll have Neos, the Italian airline that you know is the carrier of the Alpitour group. So if for touristic reasons, this is interesting, from Milan Malpensa every Wednesday to Nanjing, and both flights are operated with the Dreamliner. Then we have China Eastern from Rome, Fiumicino to Shanghai, and of course the important carrier of Cathay Pacific with flights between Milan Malpensa and Hong Kong. And furthermore, interesting thing, wearing a mask is not mandatory anymore on board on Cathay, which was the case, obviously. Last but not least, just remember that I'd like to remind you that as Italy-China Council Foundation, we have a procedure for the visa, obtaining of visa to China, fast track procedure. So if you're interested in luckily going back to China, hopefully in the next few months, and need a visa, just contact us, because it will be eager for us to help you. And with this, I just finished. Now, obviously, thanks again, and I'm here for any questions. 谢谢. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francesco. I will also take the slider. So we've, I think, covered most of the potential topics that can be related to Chinese outbound tourism to Italy. It's been an intense session. If there are any other questions, I think we can take them here now. Otherwise, I see that we have some unanswered questions on the chat on Zoom. We will reply to them later on through a direct email. So please, if we've not answered your question today, do send them to us by email. If possible, I would like to ask to share the presentation also on Zoom platform, because I'm seeing that currently it's not being shared. Well, as soon as the presentation will be shared, you will be able to see my email address that you can use for sending these questions. The email is davide.orlandi@usmecentre.org.cn. So if I think we are currently going to share the slide behind my back so that you can take note of it. But nonetheless, I will move forward. Thank you, the whole of you, once again for joining us today, for staying with us up until the end. It's been a very interesting session. I'm extremely happy by the level of engagement, by the amount of questions that we've received. So that's extremely good. That's a very positive sign from us. And of course, once again, thank you to all the organizers. Thank you to SICINDUSTRIA, Enterprise Europe Network, Logos, the Italy-China Council Foundation, Travelexpo, and Travel Non-Stop. And before I say our final goodbye, which is long overdue, I would like to ask you to please fill out the survey that you will receive at the end of this webinar. In this way, we can ameliorate our services and see how we can provide a better experience for you next time. So thank you very much once again, and we hope to see you next time. Thank you.